So this is the Khudeela television channel broadcasting on the internet only. On the internet, not on satellite, not on terrestrial, not on cable platforms. This is the Khudeela television channel broadcasting under the banner of BabyAngelGeronimo editions. This is part A of the Khudeela television channel, broadcasting at 1700 hours GMT on Sunday, 28th of May 2023. We'll cast anything on the date I'll specify in a second. So we didn't broadcast anything on Saturday, the 27th of May 2023. 27th of May is Saturday. The FT.com, which is owned by a Japanese operation, is officially edited by a woman named as Roula Khalaf, whose Wikipedia entry we retrieved at 1628 GMT today has dropped references to her birth in a Muslim family in the Lebanon. The Khalaf has sucked up to the UK spying careerist called Fleming via the Lunch with FT spot. We should talk about that in the course of this particular edition. The contents of Khalaf's promotion of Fleming once again confirm the emptiness of the British newspapers, the immorality of the British newspapers, and the complete agenda of corruption, corrupting the world and legitimizing corruption and stamping the appearance of legitimacy on corruption that goes on and corruption that controls the British society. Now, of course, they're at the same time, one of the corrupt things they do is that they deny the existence of society. The corrupt, ignorant Margaret Thatcher mouthed the phrase created by somebody else, there is no such thing as society. Now, if there is no such thing as society, then what the fuck was she doing? Abusing the resources of the society at every level. So the so-called laissez-faire thing that capitalism is supposedly the supposed system that says leave them alone, don't interfere. That is to say, the state should not interfere. It could not be more untruthful and more untrue. It is very much controlled by state interference, and the control is operated by the big business and military industrial complex that are aligned with the what is in the United Kingdom called the Tories or the Conservatives. But it is not the Tories and the Conservatives, political murderer of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, is issuing increasing signs, signals that he too is going to follow the conservative line, which is why the corrupt media and the corrupt institutions kind of peddle Starmer in the way that they've been doing. So this broadcast is being done in the age of the internet, the decade of the internet or decades of the internet. But I have been doing the same thing on a different scale, of course, diagnosing the Western or British Western media by comparing the contents, the narrative, the agenda with the reality of what they are referring to. So I started reading, diagnosing, examining, investigating, and wondering about the contents. When did I do that? I started on a regular basis, daily basis, when I was able to access the daily newspapers sometime in 1957. So, where are we now? So, it's 66 years I have been doing this. The only times that I have not been doing this have been the times when I have been physically not able to access newspapers due to events that have been beyond my control. Otherwise, I've been doing this for 66 years, calendar years, let's say. So if we multiply 66 66 multiplied by 365 is 24,090 days. So 24,090 days. So if we leave out, let's say 4,000, and keep as intact 20,000. So 20,000 days is more than any other known human being active on the planet has done. Than any of the so-called experts, including the currently topical self-peddler, Professor Anthony Seldon, who has made a career out of writing alleged books about the British prime ministers. His latest one being the one on the congenital liar, depraved Boris Johnson. whom he says is extraordinarily empty, which is the only truthful comment about him that anyone in Britain has made. That is, anyone with British allegiance, etc., has made. Of course, the Rhodesia born, self confessed liar and racist, an anti Muslim opportunist and fiction maker, Matthew Paris, that is a denunciation. It's true, but it is not as profound and conclusive as Seldon's confession that Boris Johnson is extraordinarily empty. So, going back to Roula Khalaf, the contents of the British media, now they extended to the broadcast, of course, but I'm talking about the print media even now. Because the contents of the contents of the British broadcasting outlets are very much still reliant on the contents of the British print media. For example, on the radio, there are slots on the radio programs, news programs, or factual programs that refer to what the BBC World Service used to call the review of the British press. And of course, on television, two of the main ones are, of course, Sky News doing the press preview and BBC doing the papers, both of which confirm the absolute dependence on the print outlets by the broadcasting outlets for creating a narrative, an idea about a narrative, and linking various things together based on the contents. So, going back to the Sunday Times today, the Sunday Times, owned by dirty digger Rupert Murdoch, of course, pays handsome money to the stinking racist cunt Liddle, and also the very disgracefully corrupt Camilla Long. Camilla Long, as we have said in our tweets earlier in the last few days, Camilla Long actually fancies herself as a princess one of the royals should have married. And Camilla Long could not find a more appropriate target for her venom, her jealousy, than in the person of Meghan Markle. Because any excuse, and Camilla Long is there, dedicating long parts of her column to the denunciation of Meghan Markle. But this Sunday today, Sunday the 28th of May 2023, Camilla Long has left the ordinary targets, the regular targets of Harry and Meghan, and she could not wait before spreading her suggestion of being attractive by claiming that she met or had meeting or meetings. She didn't have mating, but she did have meeting or meetings with the recently deceased Martin Amis. And her piece today in the Sunday Times is headed, "He almost offended her, Camilla Long." Who the fuck does she think she is? Of course he offended her. And this crafty distance that almost offended her, suggesting that he didn't quite reach or grab her, is an additional dishonesty on the part of Camilla Long, saying that she remained out of his physical touch. Unlike many victims of Rolf Harris, who died 2 weeks ago, or just over 2 weeks ago, but whose death has been only reported in the last week, with a note saying that his passing and his cremation were kept secret from the public by the surviving family, etc., etc. So, what is Camilla Long saying? Camilla Long is saying that Martin Amis nearly offended her. If I can reach Camilla Long's piece, I may not be able to, but I may be able to. Because the Sunday Times, because the logistics, Sunday Times is the bigger broadsheet size, like the Telegraph, but and this place where I am broadcasting from has no furniture. There is no table, so accessing broadsheet sized titles is not very handy when using the technology that I have to use. So this is the piece to put in front of the camera. See if I can do that. So this is Camilla Long. That is her. I mean, it's very difficult, as I have said in previous editions. Getting the paper in front of the camera is not easy. So let's check, try again, and see if we can get this very corrupt individual profile photo as it is peddled in the Sunday Times. So that's Martin Amis, almost there. And Camilla Long is there. You can see there. And the picture of her is with her hands on her hips, intentionally authoritative, like the feminine of the master. Here, an alcoholic, so sexually voracious, should have needed the Taliban to keep her in control. And then there is this highlight saying the magic of stories is how they evolve over the years and adapt to new audiences. Now, what is so special about that? Because when the critics of Roald Dahl recently tried to help the evolution, Liddle et al. Were up in arms, saying exactly what he claims to oppose. In the end, the injunction from his mother fell on deaf rabbit ears. Now run along and don't get into mischief, Mrs. Rabbit had warned Peter. But here he was in the tumbril, headed for the chop, and no Mr. Gregor inside. Oh, what have you done, Peter? Peter twitched his nose, rubbed his front paws together, and replied, well, I very much fear that I have been a white imperialist, mummy. Worse, through the cultural appropriation of African slave stories, I have embedded white supremacy in generations of human children. His mother shed a tear. The tumbril trundled on. Oh, you so blood right? Yes, you're next. And just wait till Hazel and Bigwig. It had to. A woman at one of our wonderful universities has decreed that Beatrix Potter, whose family had connections to the slave trade, had nicked her stories about Peter Rabbit and Jemima Puddleduck from tales told by dispossessed Africans centuries earlier. Nobody who's reproduced, notably those reproduced in the Brer Rabbit stories. Dr. Emily Zobel Marshall said, among other things, Beatrix Potter's tales, owe a rabbit. I'll read that again. Beatrix Potter's tales owe a debt to the Brer Rabbit stories that needs to be fully acknowledged. Zobel Marshall is a reader in resentment studies or something at Leeds Racket University. I'll read that again. Zobel Marshall is a reader in resentment studies or something at Leeds Beckett University. The Beckett bit is to let you know it isn't actually Leeds University, by the way, but something that used to be called Leeds Polytechnic. It lies in 100 and it lies in 110th place in the National Universities League table, but performs quite well in Stonewall's league table of gay friendly employees or employers, gay-friendly employers. So this is the kind of conflation, the insane, ignorant, prejudiced confusion of race, racism, imperialism, and religious hatred. Because by putting together in the same as the woke, LGBT, and gender identity, etc., the racists and the anti-gender identity brigades, like Liddle, suggest that being a Muslim or being an Asian or being an African person is part of their being also gay and other things, which could not be further from the truth, because each element of the identity is significant. And the reason why the identity has been sought in the beginning is to deal with the facts and evidence, the type of which has become now an industrial scale corruption, being denoted by the word that the corrupt, the racist, the criminals, the imperialists have settled on, woke. It's like the word bigot they used to use for racists. If you call it somebody bigot, it doesn't come across as racist, does it? Similarly, woke doesn't represent anyone who is upholding the universal human rights, animal rights, environmental rights, full of the to what I was saying about empty. The Sunday Times is just under £4 today. The FT weekend is £4.80 yesterday. The newspapers, let's say, about £70 a week. Local councils like Westminster, because Westminster Council accepts library situated. Westminster Council for years has stopped stocking newspapers. So anyone who has been proud of access newspaper, the other borough councils across London. and the city of London is not a council in the sense that let's say Tower Hamlets, Newham, Hackney, Islington, Camden, Westminster, Southwark, Lambeth, etc. can be and are. Those boroughs have had history of providing really handy access to people mainly in the low income groups in the populations to newspapers, which is part of a positive acknowledgement of the existence of society and the acknowledgement of the duties by the particular local council to the society's members, say under the 40% or so low income people. Now, even if we take into account the ones with the means to buy the newspapers every day, it is not the case that most people in the demography in London or in England with the financial means and the ability to buy newspapers do buy newspapers, which means that it's part of the backwardness, cultural and educational backwardness, back to the caves. Enlightenment is not something that is encouraged. So when the Holy Quran was revealed in the what is now known as the Saudi region, it is said about the revelation of the Quran and the sending of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, to that area, because at that time, this country, Saudi Arabia now called, was the darkest place in the world. So the Quran being the enlightenment, the best enlightening source and book, could not be more appropriately revealed to the Prophet, and he could not be more appropriately cited or given birth to by his parents than in the place that he was born in. And the message was and remains enlightenment removes darkness. And the perennial battle in the United Kingdom against unending cuts and reductions to education, to public services, is the continuation of the battle between the darkness that was in the Saudi and the enlightenment that was represented and is represented by the contents of the Quran and by the appearance in that population of the Prophet, peace be on him. So when the stinking Rod Liddle says that Beatrice Potter connected with the slave owning family in Africa, who is not only justified, entitled to have stolen from or stolen entire stories originally told by the people of Africa, he says it's a civilization. It's not appropriation. He doesn't recognize the darkness, because if she had to steal stories and ideas from the African people and their traditions, it follows, doesn't it, as part of civilization, that she should have acknowledged that. But she didn't. She stole. And yet, she has not been subjected to the condemnation that a thief should be treated to. And the only reason why she's not been treated as a thief is because she was white. Anything comparable to a fraction of a thousandth of the kind of theft that Beatrice Potter reportedly committed, if anything like that were committed by an African person, black African man or woman, writer, then the persons would be summarily condemned and written off and denounced. So it's not like Rod Liddle is equating like with like. He is deliberately perpetuating and perpetrating darkness and claiming darkness to be enlightenment. Moving to the Sun on Sunday and the piece by Julie Beach Hall, who has written the piece about the ITV This Morning presenter Phil Schofield and his alleged lying that so extensively hurt his co-presenter Holly Willoughby. I mean, the image that Julie Beach Hall in the piece, I have seen creepy, I have not seen it anywhere else, is quite entertaining. Let's see if I find the piece there. Julie Beach Hall and what is she doing? She's saying, Julie Beachell, lying Phil has played the woman. I'll read that again. Lying Phil, that is Phil Schofield, has played the women in his life for mugs. And the Sun on Sunday qualifies Julie Beachell as giving a very personal view on tele crisis. Now, going back to the Sun television magazine, covering the period 20 to 26th of May. Let's see what dates are there. 20 to 26 May 2023. This is the cover of the television thing. And you can almost see the image of the Pierce moron pictured in a most embarrassing grin. Now, there is, as I said about the newspapers being completely corrupt and empty. That is another example, because that whole piece in the Sun television magazine dedicated to Pierce Moron celebrates his being the most popular person on television, and he is the happiest person with the, according to them, the response to him by the British public. But of course, the British public there are not intelligent, informed, intellectually capable public. These are the zombies, the brainwashed, and the patriarchs, by which I mean the white ones. Now, the widespread report on Saturday and today's Sun and Sunday, let's say, lying Phil has played the women in his Life for Mugs by Julie Bichel. Julie Bichel says that it has all been about the dishonest, lying, gay Phil using his wife as well as Holly as support shoulders for him. And Julie Bichel says that after finishing exploiting Holly Willoughby and his ex wife, Phil Scofield is now off to his mother, seeking solace from her, which amounts to Julie Bichel's heading, Lying Phil has played the women in his life for mugs. The only use, Julie Bichel says, Phil has for women are as support structure for him. Now, there is no suggestion by any of these papers or any of the outlets that no matter how corrupt Pierce Moron is, how corrupt Phil Scofield is or has been, that they come anywhere near being describable as monster like Shamima Begum was treated as, even by the alleged son of a Pakistani bus driver, Sajid Stupid, who unceremoniously decided as the incumbent in the Home Office in Britain at the time to take away Shamima Begum's British by birth citizenship. None of the criminals, including Fred West, Rosie West, and other mass murderers, has been remotely compared to the evil that they have created as a persona of Shamima Begum. Where these criminals' crimes have been proven as crimes actually committed by murdering people, Shamima Begum's wrongdoing has not been found to have been a crime So Julie Bichel is an ex-wife of a son on Scumde right here. Let's see this. Grossly mentally survived 20 persons. These are people that, they are worse than mental slaves. They're being paid huge sums of money to prostitute themselves. Like, for example, Tony Parsons, who is a ex-husband of Julie Bichel, over now that is a device, that's a ploy used by anti-working class elements that suck up to the enemies of the working class, let's say. Because once they say that they are from working class, like Tony Parsons does, and in the case of the gays, the right-wing gays like Andrew Pierce on the Daily Mail, who says he's homosexual, once they say that they are of that particular description, they thereby assume that once they are accepted as of that or such description, any wrongdoing, any distortion, any treachery, any lies against their stated group or category is therefore justified. By extension, because they say that as a homosexual like Andrew Pierce, he should know what being a homosexual in Britain is like. So while any critic of homosexuals misbehaving is condemned for not being entitled to criticize homosexuals because they themselves are not of homosexual practice. Similarly, Tony Parsons, the capitalization of his being from working class is that anyone who is not from the working class is not entitled to speak as if from the perspective of the working class when it comes to the royalty, the monarchy, big business, military industrial complex, etc., etc. And come to the military industrial complex in a second. So Julie Bichel is notorious for not having left the United Kingdom island or the British Isles for any other country. That is fact. And now Julie Bichel is one of the most notorious racists given platforms by the Fleet Street and the assorted aligned broadcasting outlets. Because not only is she directly participating in the broadcasting outlets and counterparts, but she's also given huge acres of space, hours of space every year by broadcasting outlets under the pretext of her being the subject of the news under reference or in question. When they when they comment in support of what Sajid Javid did and the Home Office is still persisting, about Shamima Begum that she is the potent threat to British society, British security, because she allegedly joined ISIS. They don't say that with any information, let's say, about the real terrorist activities that the United Kingdom is still supporting, or the UK empire perpetrated, for example, in the Punjab in the first quarter of the 20th century, the Amritsar riot, the Gujranwala Bagh massacre under the orders of the British imperialist General Dyer. Now, to this day, Dyer, which is now, the Dyer's crimes are now 104 years old, 100, more than 105 years old. Dyer is yet to be referred to by the British media as a criminal against humanity, which is what he was, which is what he remains. His entry on the Wikipedia calls him Colonel Reginald Edward Harry Dyer and says he was an officer of the Bengal Army. Well, it's the British Army, later the newly constituted British Indian Army. How the fuck was he Bengal Army in the first place? His military career began in the regular British Army, but he soon transferred to the Presidency Armies of India. As temporary Brigadier General, he was responsible for the Jallianwala Bagh massacre that took place on the 13th of April 1919 in Amritsar, in the province of Punjab. He has been called the Butcher of Amritsar because of his order to fire on a peaceful crowd. The official report stated that this resulted in the killing of at least 379 people and the injuring of over 1,000 more. Some submissions to the official inquiry suggested a higher number of deaths. And the Kant was born in the Punjab in Mari, in Punjab, British India, as they say, the 23rd of July. Sorry, on the 9th of October 1864. Dyer was removed from duty and widely condemned both in Britain and in India, but he became a celebrated hero among some with connections to the British Raj. Some historians argue the episode was a decisive step towards the end of British rule in India. Dyer was born in Mari, in the Punjab province of British India, which is now in Pakistan. He was the son of Edward Dyer, a brewer who managed the Mari Brewery, and Mary Passmore. He spent his childhood in Mari and Shimla and received his early education at the Lawrence College, Goragali, Mari, and Bishop Cotton School in Shimla. From 11, he attended Middleton College in County Cork, Ireland, before briefly studying medicine at the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland. Dyer then decided to pursue a military career and enrolled at the Royal Military College of Sandhurst, where he graduated from in 1885. He was also fluent in a number of Indian languages as well as Persian. Following his graduation, Dyer was commissioned into the Queen's Royal Regiment, West Surrey, as a lieutenant and performed riot control duties in Belfast in 1886 and served in the Third Burmese War, 1886 to 87. He transferred to the Bengal Army, initially joining the Bengal Staff Corps as a lieutenant in 1887. He was attached to the 39th Bengal Infantry, later transferring to the 29th Punjabis. He married Frances Anne Omani, the daughter of Edmund Piper Omani, on the 4th of April 1888 in St. Martin's Church, Jhansi in India. The first of three children, Gladys, was born in Shimla, India in 1889. Dyer served in the Black Mountain Campaign, the Chitral Relief, was promoted to captain in 1896 and blockade. In 1901, he was appointed a deputy assistant adjutant general. In August 1903, Dyer was promoted to major and served with the Landi Kotal expedition, and this goes on. In 1919, the European population in Punjab feared the locals would overthrow British rule, and the Third Sahib Revolution would begin in Punjab. Thus, the by Mahatma Gandhi prevalent in some areas. Authorities were also becoming concerned by displays of Hindu Muslim unity. Notice this one again. Authorities were also becoming concerned by displays of Hindu Muslim unity. Remember, the Hindu Muslim unity was something they dreaded. We shall cover the Hindu Muslim unity at greater length in the essay form in another edition or in other editions. The Hindu woman born in Bengal, the scholar and one of my teachers spiritually, Sarojini Naidu. The Sarojini Naidu paid factual tributes to Muhammad Ali Jinnah and called him the ambassador of Hindu Muslim unity. Is it a surprise that the British media, the British establishment, singled out Muhammad Ali Jinnah as the one person they don't want to mention, don't want to recognize the existence of? Dyer was the war criminal, and Dyer has not been tried, and his trial is overdue. Dyer should be tried, as should Winston Churchill, because Churchill caused the genocide, Dyer caused the massacre, and Churchill caused the genocide in 1943, which massacred, genocided more than 3 million Bengalis. Where in any of this is civilization? as the stinking criminal, racist liar, wrote Liddle says in the Sunday Times today, 28th of May 2023. So, if we look at the actual evidence of what goes on, not only what has gone on and did go on, but what goes on today, and look for the evidence as reported or as reports in the papers, the, there is no connection, there is no acknowledgement of the evidence of the actual events. So, bringing this disparity, serious disparity, to the behavior of the, let's say, the Guardian. The Guardian, when they had a London blog written by a thing called Dave Hill. The Guardian was complicit in shoring up and promoting the corrupt mayor regime fronted by the crooked Luthraman. So Dave Hill actually promoted the idea of Ruxana Fias in next door Newham for the mayoral election that later took place in May 2018. Roxana Fias was the Labour Party's other candidate for official selection as the Labour Party's official candidate for election to the post of mayor in Newham instead of Robin Wales. Robin Wales had been in post as the mayor of Newham from 2002 until 2018. That is 16 too long years. Now, I have, of course, begun to topically, contextually, diagnostically update on my challenge to Robin Wales on live television that lasted about 28 minutes on 14th of March 2018. I've started doing that because if anyone watches the exchange without the actual contents and the kind of context, they won't understand what actually went on. They will only hear Robin Wales because the sound quality of what he was saying was much poorer because of the incompetence of these so called broadcasters who are mentally supplicated and mentally servile to the racist Robin Wales, who they deferred to. I shall deal with that aspect another time, but essentially, what Robin Wales said on the 14th of March 2018 was that the housing crisis in Newham was getting better under his direction as the mayor, and Newham's schools were performing much better than they had ever done for a long time, and that he was working on improving on the reduction of crime in Newham. These are too simplistic and too unrepresentative for somebody who doesn't actually have the dedicated attention to the facts every day. They cannot understand what lies Robin Wales was saying. And the presenter was absolutely ignorant. The presenter described me as a community activist. What a stupid, fucking stupid, idiotic falsehood. I'm not a fucking community activist, you shit moron. And the reason why I was there at all is also something that I have not explained and I will explain in the course of the narrative that I shall be publishing, examining my challenge to Robin Wales. There is no community activist anywhere, not just in the United Kingdom, but anywhere on the planet Earth that can be related to the Bangladeshi community and the Bangladeshi community's status as embattled in the particular overseas areas or is within the Bangladesh in the context of whatever particular party or group or gang of thugs may be in power in Bangladesh itself. Nobody can be compared on the evidence with my work, which I have been doing, as I have said, about the newspapers for 66 years. So it's coming up to 7 decades. There is no one, in terms of the diversity, the various aspects, various types of advocacy, representation, and campaign, and in terms of the intensity, and in terms of the outcome, there is nobody who has got anything like the record I have. Nobody anywhere. So, for this presenter to call me community activist shows his complete and utter DNA idiocy and backwardness and stupidity. One of the reasons I don't appear on these idiots' programs anymore is because they are completely uneducated, ignorant, and stupid. They don't know what the so called audience or viewers need to know, need to understand, and what would help the understanding. So, to call me a community activist is an insult to the word, to the language, and to any number of viewers. And he didn't introduce Robin Wales at all, except as the mayor, the mayor. What the fuck? So, what Robin Wales was saying in the 27 or 28 minutes of the broadcast was using slightly changed paraphrases to say the same thing. Housing was improving, but if there was any problem in the housing, it was to do with the government, that is the conservatives, and that crime was something that he was addressing, and so on. None of it is true. So, what I did in that particular episode of the so called program, because I was not given any notice about the fact that I would be invited to take part. Anyone who knows about any aspect of real objective journalism knows that there has to be basic amount of factual research, contextual research. This presenter did a dishonest thing. Every time he invited me to this so-called program ever, he was being dishonest. He was lying, and the dishonesty and the lying was nothing to do with the needs of the community. The dishonesty and the lying was to do with him being able to claim that any criticism about his dishonesty, his incompetence, was nothing to do with his ignorance or whatever. The entirety of the career as a so-called journalist of Reza Ahmad Faisal alias Shoaib is corrupt beyond condemnation. Ungrateful, ingrate, he has no idea. He has absolutely no idea that he could not find anyone in any ethnicity or any background in the entire population of the world who could appear to face somebody of Robin Wales's record and demolish Robin Wales without any preparation on their part, that is, on the part of anyone who would appear like I did. I only was able to demolish Robin Wales because of my work, my record. And the liar presenter so far has failed to properly acknowledge what I did to salvage him. Suppose Robin Wales appeared solo. What would Shoaib say to him? He couldn't say anything because, based on what he did say on the 14th of March 2018, Shoaib was empty. So that could not actually do justice to the cause of basic relevance knowledge that the people of Newham were entitled to be given on a program like that, especially as it was a broadcast that was forced by pressure from Robin Wales himself, who demanded the kind of right to reply, because 2 days earlier, on the 12th of March 2018, Shoaib had hosted Roxana Fias, and he had failed to detect several factual errors and inaccuracies that Roxana Fias perpetrated in that program. And he couldn't actually interrogate Roxana Fias either. If Shoaib were to gather together all the so called professional Bengali journalists that he could find or he could summon, all of them put together, they would not be able to put Robin Wales at the disadvantage which I did put him at throughout. Instead of saying thank you, and showing his gratitude, this liar, idiot Schwab has defamed me. So therefore, I need to have the essay length edition to deal with every single item of Schwab's lying and deception and dishonesty. So going back to Robin Wells himself, when I said that the Mayer system was discreditable, and was a disaster and was anti-democratic, Robin Wells either willfully misconceived or misunderstood that, or he was unable intellectually to grasp the meaning of what I was saying. He stated that I had insulted the people of Newham after I had said that he, Robin Wells, had actually lowered the status of Newham Council to a bureaucratic, corrupt outfit, and that he had actually betrayed the legitimate expectations of the people of Newham. And Robin Wells said that I had insulted the people of Newham. How would I have done that by saying what I did say? Robin Wells also failed to understand 2 years before he physically arrived in Newham from Scotland, I had been actually elected by the general body of the students of what later became the University of East London. I was elected the editor of the publications of the Students' Union. I was elected in 1976. Now, that was 2 years before 1978 when Wales arrived in Newham. I was elected by the ordinary students spread over 3 boroughs in East London, which is now the University of East London. And I created history in covering the visit in that year, the tour of student unions across England by the former CIA employee Philip A.G., who had just written the book Inside the Company. And it was I who created unique coverage for all of England of Philip A.G.'s tour. And it was my reports that are copied by student union publications right across England. There is no example like that. And Schwab could not understand what that meant. How old was Schwab in 1976? How the fuck did he say that I was a community activist? We shall be covering all of these and other items in due course. This is 1 hour, 25 minutes. And we shall be bringing an end to this edition at 1825, 1826 hours GMT on Sunday, the 28th of May 2023.